However, one of the sort of downsides of working for such a long time is that you get this feeling that you've seen it all before. That the old ideas are often recycled as new ideas, just like old fashions are recycled as new fashions. And so you constantly find that we're too often talking to the converted. In this way, it's actually a very small world that we work in. It's even smaller if you get trapped in the conference circuit and go from one conference to another. And so I get the impression that communities of practice are very much sort of peers talking to each other in a professional manner, and obviously one needs to do that. But one of the things that I've learned is that new perspectives need many different sort of strands are needed to innovate and to bring sort of out of the box thinking into reality, and to sort of rejuvenate some of the old ideas. And my question, therefore, to David is, what kind of information sharing mechanism works best to achieve this out-of-box thinking? You know, the lurkers that you mentioned. How do you actually engage them in a constructive manner in relation to a community practice?
Especially if you're looking at innovation, I think there's a couple of dynamics that are happening right now, and clearly there's a power shift happening. We see the dynamics changing on the powers, and a lot of times it's going from government to citizens. Citizens are having more power, they're being better informed. And social media is part of this, and some of the other information channels are part of this. But citizens are feeling a little more empowered in one sense of shape. The other thing on that level is the rate of change. Knowledge gets old quickly now. In the old days, 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you knew something, that was a bit of a power base. If you held on to it, it gave you an advantage. Nowadays, sharing gives you the advantage, not holding power. So that's one side of it. Innovation also, previously, was born out of competition. You compete against each other, and that's how you created innovation, through R&D. Now we're finding, because of resource stretch and everything else, that innovation is actually coming out of partnerships. So there's another dynamic shift, and this is where communities of practice come in. Having a community practice of peers, just practitioners, has a purpose. But when you introduce customers in that end, government decision-making policy side, when you introduce them to the community practice, and the lurkers, especially when you're looking at a lot of the issues with development previously from a World Bank perspective were macro, micro, mathematical in nature. Now they're behavioral in nature. So we're seeing things like behavioral economics, social economics. We're seeing these type of things, these hybrids, where normally they don't have community practice. They don't have a forum where they can speak. So coming into the community practice, they're actually adding now these different perspectives. And as you know, innovation always is at the edge. Innovation doesn't happen in the center, it always happens at the edge. And so the lurkers' inclusion of some of these other ideas now is spurring some of the older traditional knowledge into new ways, new boxes in that sense to do it together. So
that's very interesting. To Hina, climate change has obviously spawned a variety of new organizations, and where I used to work in the Asian Development Bank, everyone suddenly became a climate expert overnight. One of the perspectives, I think, is that climate change adaptation is really development done well. So your notion of climate and development, I think, is entirely the correct one. But how do we ensure that networks like CDKN actually deliver or foster real experts rather than merely rebadging the old development practitioners as suddenly becoming climate experts? Or do we have to wait another 10 years or so for real climate experts to begin to emerge from the universities and educational institutions with the proper training and, you know, the years of professional sort of training? Or is there a sort of shortcut where practitioners can actually help each other develop the necessary expertise through a community practice?
For example, you know, the work that we do at CDKN, whatever projects that we develop, we make sure for us that, you know, it's demand-led in the sense, you know, it is what's, you know, is needed from the government point of view. It should not be something that we want to impose upon that, that this is what we need and this is what needs to be done. In terms of, you know, looking for the best expertise, you know, we have an entire system within CDKN in which, you know, we launch call for applications, and then, you know, we screen through different processes and various levels, and then we select, you know, appropriate product. But your point is quite valid in the sense, you know, that climate change is new, development is old, but looking at development from a climate change lens is something, you know, which is needed. And that also means partnership. It's quite possible that, you know, people from the agriculture sector needs to collaborate with people from the Med department to reach to a different kind of a conclusion or give some guidance to policymakers. Similarly, you know, people who, different courses have just recently been, you know, launched by different universities and short courses and programs on climate change. And, you know, it will take a while for those people, you know, to come out and be in the open market, you know, and share their useful knowledge and information. But for the time being, you know, what we try to do is, you know, make sure that we have the appropriate skills from different backgrounds to come together and deliver a project, and that's, you know, how we try to engage. For example, you know, a project that we are doing on food security. We want to see the link between food security and its impact on climate change. And it's a project that we are delivering in Nepal, and we have partnered with World Food Program, who has developed indicators, about, you know, hundreds of indicators to collect data on food-related issues in terms of food security as well as, you know, production and consumption. And now what we're trying to do is, you know, link them up with climate experts, you know, who have been looking at models in terms of climate variability and changes, and merge those two models together to, you know, reach to discussion, you know, for discussion purposes, you know, have some policy briefs or some papers developed which can be sent to policymakers to see and learn from and make decisions accordingly, so that, you know, their decisions are based on not only what's been happening based on, you know, food production in the past 10 years, but also look at it from a climate perspective to see how climate changes the variability and changes in the monsoons and the rate of rain and all that changes the production, and then how they make decisions.
Community practice, I believe, is a powerful tool when it works, when we design well, when we practice well, when we plan well. However, there may be some pitfall if we consider maybe even wider sort of picture to give it to it. However, my impression is since in-house quick survey indicated that everybody is already aware of how to use internet. So we know how to use. And also internet technology. We accumulate a lot of information out there. But also knowledge is in ourselves as well. So I think this is seemingly untapped resources we can utilize even more. And so COP could be facilitate this, our information. Someone's information can be very useful to someone else. So if community of practice can be useful, can be used in a proper way, I think we can make possibly make a very good change or even find a solution for sustainable development. So that was my sort of general sort of conclusion from this session. But before I like to close this session, this is a very rare occasion to hear from each speakers and panelists. I'd like to ask very short, take-home, one quick message from each of you. So can we start with David?
I think when it comes, the concept of knowledge management has been around for a long time, and a lot of people, even myself, I don't know what knowledge management means anymore. It's been used for so many definitions. But the process, the understanding that knowledge is becoming very, very important for what we do. Knowledge transfer, part of capacity building, part of learning. I think the point is we have to take it serious. This is a serious part of the business that we're in. And it is around resilience and it is around sustainability. Knowledge exchange leading to capacity building is the key, no matter what the thematic area is. So I think we just have to take it seriously and not be so cavalier by our approaches to knowledge. It's what industries have been built on very successfully. And the development industry can very successfully be built on that.
Thank you.
I think, knowledge generation is not only the main point. Knowledge dissemination is also very key. So, rather than generating knowledge and developing reports and all that, which, go in shelves and all that, we should try to ensure how do we build in mechanisms in the sense, how does that knowledge feed into different tiers and levels of policy making, ground level, or meso, micro, or macro level.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the take-home message that I would give is that there is a lot of confusion, I think, around the difference between a community of practice and a network, and the standard idea of just creating a web portal and sharing information. And I think a lot more sort of rigor is needed in terms of defining exactly what it is you want a community of practice to do, how you want it to work, and how to avoid some of the pitfalls that Morrison pointed to, that it can be maladaptive as well as adaptive. But I think some of the key things that we've heard today is that a community of practice can actually be used not just as a way of sharing information amongst peers and professional sort of exchanges, but can actually be used as a tool for innovation as well. And I think that's one of the key take-home messages.